宾、女士们、先生们，
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen.
我是来自中国国家知识产权局知识产权运用促进司的吕律，很高兴有机会跟大家分享中国在培育地理标志品牌、促进特色产业发展方面的实践。
I'm Lü Lü from the IP Utilization and Promotion Department of CNIPA, the China National IP Administration. It is my great pleasure to be here to share China's practice in brand building of GI and how we promote the development of industries with local features.
地理标志作为一种重要的知识产权，是促进区域特色经济发展的有效载体，是推进乡村振兴的有力支撑，是推动外贸外交的重要领域，也是保护和传承传统优秀文化的鲜活载体。在促进特色产业发展方面，地理标志是产品品质、特征、信誉的标志，是区域文化和区域形象的代表符号，对特色产业的形成、发展和繁荣具有重要的作用。
GI as an important type of IP right can boost regional economy, support rural revitalization, promote foreign trade, and preserve traditional culture. GI can be used to identify the qualities, characteristics, and reputation of certain products, and it can serve as the symbol of regional culture and image. Therefore, GI can play an important role in the development of industries with local features.
首先，地理标志产品品质独特，特色鲜明，美誉度高，更具比较优势和市场竞争力，容易产生较高的商品溢价，增加收入。
Firstly, GI products have unique qualities, distinctive features, and high reputation, which make them more competitive in the market and are likely to generate higher commodity premiums.
其次，地理标志产品代表特定区域公共利益，易建立有长效连结机制的利益连结，能够促进产业规模化、集约化和品牌化发展，吸纳更多贫困人口就业。
Secondly, GI products represent public interests of certain regions and are easy to establish long-term interest linkages so as to promote the industrial scale-up, the intensification and branding, and help more people get jobs.
再者，地理标志产品蕴含着深厚的人文历史传承，以地理标志为纽带，能更好促进特色产业发展与生态旅游建设、历史文化传承等有机融合，实现经济效益倍增和绿色生态可持续发展。
Furthermore, GI products contain profound cultural heritage, and with GI as a link, the development of industries with local features can better integrate it with tourism and cultural protection so as to achieve green growth and sustainable development.
中国地域幅员辽阔，民族众多，历史文化悠久，地理标志资源十分丰富。截至今年9月，中国累计批准地理标志产品2495件，核准地理标志作为集体商标、证明商标注册6992件。
China is a huge country with long history and many ethnic groups. Therefore, we have abundant GI resources. As of September this year, China has approved a total of 2,495 GI products and registered 6,992 GI as collective and certification marks.
近年来，在促进这些地理标志的运用方面，中国国家知识产权局紧密围绕地理标志品牌建设和推动特色产业发展等工作重点，制定出台了一系列政策文件，多措并举促进地理标志运用，推动地方特色经济发展，取得了积极成效。下面我将从3个方面介绍有关情况。
In recent years, CNIPA has formulated a series of policies to promote GI utilization. And CNIPA has taken multiple measures to use GI to boost local economy, which have achieved positive results. Next, I will explain in detail from 3 aspects.
第一个大的方面是中国国家知识产权局的工作情况。
First of all, I would like to introduce the work done by CNIPA.
首先是顶层设计方面。
Firstly, the top-level design.
积极推动地理标志运用促进工作写入知识产权强国建设纲要2021至2035年和“十四五”国家知识产权保护和运用规划等国家重要文件，提出了推动地理标志与特色产业发展、生态文明建设、历史文化传承以及乡村振兴有机融合，提升地理标志品牌影响力和产品附加值等地理标志品牌建设和特色产业发展方面的重要工作任务。
The promotion of GI utilization has been included into important national documents, such as the Guidelines of Building an IP Powerhouse from the year 2021 to the year 2035, and the 14th Five-Year Plan for the Protection and Utilization of National IP Rights. The tasks have been proposed, such as integrating GI with development of industries with local features, cultural protection, and rural revitalization, and enhancing the influence of GI brands and added value of GI products.
中国国家知识产权局还专门印发《地理标志保护和运用“十四五”规划》，明确未来5年的地理标志运用促进工作目标任务。
CNIPA has also issued a document called the 14th Five-Year Plan for GI Protection and Utilization to set out the objectives and tasks in the next 5 years.
其次，在项目推动方面。
And secondly, regarding the projects that we have implemented.
2019年8月，中国国家知识产权局印发《地理标志运用促进工程实施方案》，启动实施地理标志运用促进工程，在17个中西部省份开展实施21个国家地理标志运用促进工程项目，支持开展产业规划引导、质量标准管理、区域品牌打造等工作。
In August 2019, CNIPA issued the implementation plan for GI utilization projects and carried out 21 GI utilization projects in 17 provinces in order to support industrial planning guidelines, standard quality management, and regional brand building.
项目实施期间，涉及地理标志产业创造产值超过210亿元，相关加工、物流、旅游等产业产值达到40亿元，带动从业贫困人口超过60万人，贫困人口年收入较上年度平均增加860元。
During our implementation of these projects, the output value of GI-related industries has exceeded 21 billion RMB, and the output value of other industries, such as processing, logistics, and tourism, has reached 4 billion RMB, creating jobs for more than 600,000 people, and the annual income of people increased 860 RMB on average compared with the previous year.
2021年7月，中国国家知识产权局印发《关于组织开展地理标志助力乡村振兴行动的通知》，接续实施地理标志助力乡村振兴行动，从全国范围内遴选了160个工作基础好、品牌影响力高、具备进一步培育和推广潜力的地理标志，列入首批运用促进重点联系指导名录，加强业务指导、项目支持和政策扶持。
In July last year, CNIPA issued the notice on using GI for rural revitalization and selected 160 GIs with high influence and great potential from across the country as the first batch to provide more business guidance and support.
据统计，首批列入指导名录的160件地理标志产品及其关联产业，2021年总产值达到5625亿元，较上年增加510亿元，从业人员达到1473万人，当年新增就业人口117万人。
According to statistics, the total output value of the first batch of 160 GI products and their associated industries reached 562.5 billion RMB in 2021, an increase of 51 billion RMB over the previous year. The number of employees reached 14.73 million, with 1.17 million people newly employed in the same year.
此外，中国国家知识产权局还遴选各地用好地理标志推进乡村振兴的有效做法，组织编写出版了《地理标志助力乡村振兴典型案例汇编》。
In addition, CNIPA also selected good practices of using GI to promote rural revitalization in various regions and published the collection of typical cases of using GI to promote rural revitalization.
最后，在服务供给方面，
Lastly, I'd like to share some information about our service.
在线下依托服贸会、中国品牌日等国际展会活动，搭建地理标志品牌价值传递和文化传播的平台，指导安徽、吉林、四川等地建设地理标志展示推广中心，构建地理标志品牌打造和产品展示的线下载体，支持四川依托中欧班列打造地理标志产品的出口专线，将中国地理标志产品销售至俄罗斯等欧洲国家。
International exhibitions such as Service Trade Fair and China Brand Day provide good opportunities to promote GI products. In addition, many provinces such as Anhui, Jilin, and Sichuan province have established display centers to showcase GI products. In Sichuan province, the China-Europe freight trains has been used to export GI products to European countries.
在线上强化与商务部的工作协同，共同举办2022年全国双品网购节，指导开展树商兴农专场活动，组织各地加强地理标志产品线上销售对接和品牌推广。2周的活动期间，100余件地理标志产品线上销售额超过38亿元。
CNIPA also worked together with the Ministry of Commerce to host the National Online Shopping Festival and carry out several activities to help online docking of GI production and marketing. During the 2 weeks of activities, the online sales of more than 100 GI products exceeded 3.8 billion RMB.
此外，我们还支持发展地理标志的服务机构，推动地理标志服务资源进乡村、走基层、办实事，普及地理标志基础知识，宣传地理标志社会和经济效益，提高社会意识，激发市场主体运用地理标志参与市场竞争的积极性和主动性。
In addition, we also provide support for GI service agencies and bring GI-related services into rural areas. We popularize the basic knowledge of GI to rural people, tell them about its social and economic benefits to raise their awareness and stimulate their enthusiasm to use GI in market competition.
第2个大的方面是地方有关工作情况。
The second part of my presentation is that I will share the information about the work done by local authorities.
中国各地方知识产权管理部门积极响应中国国家知识产权局的统一部署，深入开展地理标志运用促进工作，出台了一系列行之有效的政策措施，开展了丰富多彩的系列活动，助力当地地理标志品牌打造、产品品质提升和特色产业发展。
Under the unified deployment of CNIPA, local IP authorities carried out a variety of measures and activities to help brand building and improve quality of local GI products.
一是突出特色品质，培育地理标志品牌。一方面强化地理标志品质保证，浙江、福建等省份进一步将地理标志产品从统一生产、加工标准拓展到统一包装宣传标准，实现地理标志产品从生产到销售的全流程标准统一。浙江、江苏、福建等省份积极完善地理标志产品的原料获取、生产加工、市场销售全流程的电子化管理，通过二维码等溯源手段，确保了地理标志产品的品质。
Firstly, high quality of GI products has been guaranteed. In many provinces, such as Zhejiang, Fujian, and some other provinces, they further expanded the standardization of GI products from production and processing to packaging and marketing, and realized the unified standards of GI products during the whole process from production to sales. Some provinces, such as Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Fujian, improved the electronic management of the whole process from obtaining raw materials to production and marketing. And GI products are traceable by using QR codes.
另一方面，提升地理标志品牌价值。吉林省评选打造10大地理标志品牌，湖北举办地理标志品牌培育大赛，广东、河北等省份在中央电视台、人民网等中央媒体节目中宣传地理标志。湖北、江苏、山东、云南等省份知识产权局通过与省电视台签署战略合作协议等方式，制作地理标志专题节目。浙江、内蒙、辽宁、重庆等省份与阿里巴巴、抖音、快手等电商平台合作，开展地理标志直播节等活动，打造地理标志网红。
In addition, efforts have also been made to enhance the brand value of GI products. Jilin Province selected the top 10 GI brands, and Hubei Province held the competition of GI brand building. A number of provinces promoted GI through media, and some regional IP offices signed cooperation agreements with local TV stations to produce specific TV programs on GI. In some other provinces, the local IP authorities cooperated with e-commerce platforms such as Alibaba and TikTok to carry out live streaming of GI products and make them popular online.
二是注重融合发展，做强地理标志产业。一方面，充分发挥专利技术的作用，助力解决地理标志产业发展过程中的技术难题。湖北省将新品种培育、病虫害防治以及产品深加工等多项地理标志产业发展相关技术纳入高价值知识产权培育支持项目。河南围绕正阳花生与省农科院共同推动多项专利技术在地理标志产品生产中转化运用，提升精深加工能力和产业化水平。
Secondly, the local authorities pay attention to the overall development of GI industries. On the one hand, patented technologies have been deployed to solve the technical problems incurred during the development of GI industries. In Hubei province, several GI-related technologies, such as breeding of new varieties, pest control, and deep processing of products, are included in the project of cultivating and supporting high-value IP. Henan Province has promoted the transfer and application of a number of patented technologies around Zhengyang peanut, which is a GI product, in order to enhance the capacity of deep processing and industrialization.
另一方面，积极引入金融服务，为地理标志产业做大做强提供资本支撑。上海支持建设首个地理标志类知识产权试点园区，指导上海农业农村银行开展地理标志产业发展结合授信，用标企业成功获得银行贷款的融资支持。江苏、广东、上海等省份推出地理标志保险，对多件地理标志被侵权损失予以保障。
On the other hand, financial services have been channeled to GI industries. Shanghai City established the first pilot park of GI and guided the Shanghai Rural Commercial Bank to grant credit to GI industries so that enterprises with GI can successfully obtain financing. Jiangsu, Guangdong, and Shanghai provinces have introduced GI insurance to prevent GI from infringement losses.
三是注重服务供给，提升地理标志运用能力。各地不断加大地理标志相关知识的普及和推广力度，深入县域乡村一线，开展地理标志技术讲座、现场观摩、咨询培训等活动，打造地理标志的服务平台。
Thirdly, services have been provided to facilitate GI utilization. Local authorities have made efforts to disseminate GI knowledge by holding lectures, consultations, and trainings in rural areas.
河北组织开展地理标志巡回宣讲活动，面对面、点对点解决基层地理标志的问题。安徽开展专项行动，送地理标志知识进田间、进农户、进企业。江苏、甘肃深入开展地理标志万里行活动，组织地理标志服务机构走基层办实事，结合当地产业的特点，在乡村开展地理标志技术讲座、观摩交流、咨询培训等活动。
In Hebei province, roving seminars have been organized to answer GI questions face-to-face. Anhui province carried out special actions to disseminate GI knowledge to rural people and enterprises. Jiangsu and Gansu provinces organized IP service institutions to host GI lectures and conduct consultations and trainings in the countryside.
最后一个方面，我想分享一个案例，是桑植蜂蜜地理标志打造精准扶贫黄金产业的分享。
In the last part of my presentation, I'd like to share a successful story of Sangzhi honey, which is a GI, to illustrate how we use GI to help poverty alleviation.
首先介绍一下桑植蜂蜜的基本情况。
So first, I will introduce Sangzhi County briefly.
桑植县位于中国的湖南省的西北部，地形多样，植物种类众多，有着悠久的养蜂发展史。目前，全县养殖桑植蜂蜜的乡镇有23个，可供养蜂的面积达到350平方千米。
Sangzhi County, located in the northwestern part of Hunan Province in China. It has diversified landforms and numerous plant species, and it has a long history of beekeeping. At present, there are 23 towns in the county that work on beekeeping, and the area available for beekeeping reaches 350 square kilometers.
2018年，桑植蜂蜜注册成为地理标志证明商标。桑植县政府提出产业融合、旅游融合、绿色发展的总体发展战略，依托县域资源优势，加强地理标志运用和品牌打造，促进桑植蜂蜜产业持续稳步发展。
In the year 2018, Sangzhi honey was registered as a GI certification mark. The government of Sangzhi County put forward the overall strategy of utilizing GI to realize poverty alleviation, integrating GI with tourism, and pursuing green development. Relying on its resources, Sangzhi County strengthened GI branding and utilization to promote the steady development of the honey industry.
截至2020年，全县有蜜蜂养殖户17500多户，年产蜂蜜550吨左右，产值达到3亿元。蜜蜂产业在带动全县脱贫增收、助力脱贫攻坚的工作中发挥了巨大的作用。
As of 2020, the county has more than 17,500 beekeepers with an annual output of 550 tons of honey and a value of 300 million RMB. The honey industry has played a huge role in lifting the county out of poverty and increasing people's income.
下面我将介绍一下桑植蜂蜜的主要做法，还有工作成效。
So I will share with you what they have done and the results they have achieved.
一是开展生产技能培训。
Firstly, the Sangzhi County carry out trainings on production skills.
2020年，桑植县发放相关培训资料8万余份，在养蜂的重点乡镇举办了精准扶贫养蜂技术培训班4期，参加培训的人员达到490余人。培训进一步调动了农民的积极性，仅一个乡镇当年就新增养殖户1000多户，全镇养蜂达到1.1万多箱，使养蜂成为当地人民脱贫致富的法宝。
In the year 2020, Sangzhi County distributed more than 80,000 copies of training materials and held 4 sessions of training on beekeeping technologies, with almost 500 participants. These trainings mobilized the local farmers for beekeeping. For example, in one of the towns alone, 1,000 beekeeping households were newly added, and the beekeeping in the whole town reached more than 11,000 boxes. Beekeeping has become a magic weapon for local people to get rid of poverty.
二是充分利用产业优势，助力精准脱贫的工作。桑植县是一个山区县，森林覆盖率达到 76.28%， 养蜂产业可以充分利用山区生态资源优势，实现小规模生产经营。当地政府通过对贫困户进行定向帮扶，例如细沙坪村村委积极发展养蜂产业，推动全村 80% 的农户参与养蜂。农坛坪镇创办蜂蜜系列加工厂，安排13名残疾人长期就业，所生产的蜂蜜口红、唇膏、香皂、护肤霜等系列产品获得了消费者的青睐。
Secondly, the Sangzhi County make full use of the industrial advantages. Sangzhi County is a mountainous county with 76% of forest coverage. The beekeeping industry can make full use of the regional advantages and realize small-scale production. The local government provides targeted assistance to poor households. For example, in Xishaping village, the village committee made efforts to boost the beekeeping industry, and 80% of the farmers in the village are beekeepers. In Longtanping town, a honey product processing factory has been established, which created jobs for 13 disabled people. Its diversified products, such as honey, lipstick, soap, and cream, have won the favor of consumers.
三是狠抓质量管理，推动蜂蜜的质量提升。为提高蜂蜜品质，桑植县与湖南省 食品质量检验检测研究院签订了桑植蜂蜜委托检验协议书，开展蜂蜜质量检验，从生产源头上把好质量关。县政府制定出台了桑植县桑植蜂蜜地理标志证明商标管理办法、桑植县蜂蜜生产管理办法，进一步规范了桑植蜂蜜的生产技术工艺。
Thirdly, the Sangzhi County pay close attention to quality management. In order to improve the quality of honey, Sangzhi County signed an agreement with Hunan Provincial Food Quality Inspection Institute to carry out a quality inspection and control the quality from the source of production. The county government issued the management measures for Sangzhi honey GI certification mark to further standardize the production technologies.
实践证明，发展地理标志特色产业已成为发展区域特色经济、推动乡村振兴的一条重要路径。下一步，中国国家知识产权局将继续深入开展地理标志助力乡村振兴行动，不断提升地理标志的品牌影响力和产品附加值，真正实现用活一枚地标，带动一个产业，造福一方百姓。
In conclusion, the practices have proved that GI can be an important way to boost regional economy and realize rural revitalization. In the next step, CNIPA will continue to carry out actions of using GI to help rural revitalization, improve the influence of GI brands, and the added value of GI products. Our purpose is to drive the development of industries and enrich the local people by GI utilization.
以上就是我今天的分享，谢谢大家。
That is all my presentation. Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
No.
Right. Well, thank you very much. What I'll try and do is what's happening? There it is. So we'll go straight to the presentation. What I wish to do is try and take you through the journey of geographical indications in India in the last 20 years. And I've been involved at the very grassroots level in India right from the day the Geographical Indications Act actually came into force. So I've actually seen things happening at the ground level, and still I'm very much involved in the entire process. Now, what's happening? Can you just change it from there? Yeah. So if you look at it, that the geographical indications, the Act of 1999 came into effect on 15th of September 2003. Why? Because the rules, to really make it operative came in much later. And so the effective date is 15th of September 2003. Then you have the rules that were notified, then there were debates and whatnot, and all these things changed. And finally it got operative from 2003. Now, interestingly enough, is, I take you straight from 2003 to 2019. That's when the government of India actually came with that logo, the GI, the tag. So it said that, well, if you are given a GI, if you have registered a GI, you not only can use your logo, but you can also use the government of India given logo to indicate that this is an Indian GI. So when you go abroad or anywhere else, you also propagate the quality of India on that. And then, of course, very important is that we notified some new rules I'll come to that later on as to what those new rules are in the year 2020. So we've undergone, substantive change. Though the Act is just about, in this winter session of the Parliament, there is an amendment to this Act, and it's going to come in the winter session of the Parliament. So you will actually see a new GI Act shortly in India out there. Now, can we go to the next slide, please? So I don't want to go into details of it, but very important for us to realize that India not only has a Trademarks Act, it also has a GI Act in addition to the Trademark Act. So that's very important. So we have a Patent Act, Designs Act, Copyright Act, GI Act, and also the Trademark Act. So it all works. The whole idea is to try and make it work all in synergy with one another, so that when you go into the brand building aspect to it, you take all these into consideration for brand building. So that's the first part. And therefore, right from the beginning, the definition of goods that are covered under GI, unlike the European Union, for example, the goods covers manufactured goods, natural goods, agricultural goods, and goods of handicraft and of industry. So it covers all the aspects, the entire spectrum. Number one, I will not go into the definition of geographical indications because all of us are aware of it, so I won't repeat that. If you go to the next slide, and this is an important part, a registered proprietor. Who is a registered proprietor? The one who applies for the GI, who it can be, and it has to be a collective. It could be a society that takes, has in the interest of the community, of that working community at large. So that is what is a registered proprietor. But the Indian Act has a very peculiar nuance, which is not there in many other acts. And that is something called an authorized user. That means every single person in the value chain must register herself or himself with the registry to become an authorized user. That means the authorized, the registered proprietor cannot define an authorized user. The authorized user has to be registered with the registry. That's a very big difference between Indian law and many of the other laws. So you must keep this in mind, and I'll tell you the pros and cons of this as we go along. So that's very important. Very, very important for us. And then, of course, who is the producer? The definition of producer is, as is given here, for goods of agricultural producers, of those goods of the person in processing, packaging. So the entire value chain is, put across out there. So these are some of the nuances. I don't want to dwell too much, but it's important to recognize and realize that these are the very important factors in the GI Act in India. And as it says, and includes any person who trades or deals in such production, exploitation, making or manufacturing as the case may be for goods or of the goods. So this is a very, very broad definition which covers the entire value chain. So that's the key part. Can we go to the next slide, please? And therefore, I won't go into great detail, but what's the flow chart? Let's understand the flow chart, that someone files an application, then you can do it offline, and today you can do it even online. Very important. And then, you get your fee receipt, you pay for it, and then after that, what the GI office does is issues a preliminary report, right? So that preliminary report comes to you as the applicant, you then respond to it. And once you respond to it, the application is required to comply with the deficiencies raised in the preliminary examination report. We go further into the next slide, and then once you do that, then the report comes in with the GI office. What the GI office does is creates a consultative committee of experts. For example, I am a part of the consultative committee of experts in India, and the consultative committee is a group of experts who sit out with the GI office people. They actually go through details of the thing. They call every applicant for an interview for any deficiencies. It also acts as a facilitating group. That means when these people, the weavers and the craftsmen and others, together with their representative comes, we actually do a whole process of facilitating, telling them if this is the deficiency, this is the way you will cover it, this is what it should be done, so that it doesn't go back and forth between the GI office. And that was not being done earlier, it's being done now. Number one. Number two, this consultative committee, such as me being a part of it, we actually travel from one part of the country to another part of the country. And we actually meet these craftspeople. So, there is some sort of a, ownership of them and interest that gets generated out of that. So that's what happens. So evaluation takes place by the expert committee. We go to the next slide. And then, of course, with that, we give all those things. They make the changes. Then either the application is accepted or rejected. And then it's advertised again. And then, of course, if there is an opposition or objections raised by third party, then it goes through those proceedings and it goes into the GI journal, and that comes electronically. Can we go further, please? And then, as I said, if there is opposition, then you appear, and the whole thing goes through the standard process of these things. And, if it survives the opposition, then, of course, the application proceeds for registration, etc., etc. That's how the GI process gets done in India. Now, so, that's a summary of what I told you, so we can just skip this particular slide. And therefore, now the important part, foreign applicants. So foreign applicants go through exactly the same process. So there is no difference between foreign applicants and Indian applicants. They have to exactly go through the same process. In fact, last week, we, as a consultative committee, before us, actually the Peruvian government and their representatives, came in with their application. We took them through the exactly same process. So it's a completely non-discriminatory process that we go through. Can we go further, please? And so, with the online facilities now, right, you can do the entire process online, except for, we will also make this consultative committee thing online a bit later, but at the moment, that's something which is physical, and we do it on a face-to-face basis. Go further, please. Now, I just wanted to show you that from the day that we actually, enacted the GI and the rules came into force, you can see right from 3-4 applications to about 20 was the sort of average that was being filed every year. And now you can see a big shot to 50. In fact, with these 50 now, in fact, every day now, GI applications are being filed at a tremendously rapid rate out there. So this is the sort of numbers, and you will see that 422 GI applications, they have been registered. So applications are about 1,000 odd by now, but about 422 have actually been registered. The next slide, which is there, shows you the sort of spread. So if you look at handicrafts, it's about 232 have been registered. If you look at agriculture, it's about 126, manufacture 37, foodstuff 25, and natural goods are 2 out there. So this is a very quick scan for you where we stand in actual numbers. These numbers are as of 31st October 2022. And since I'm in the consultative committee, I have the privilege of seeing the numbers on a daily basis. So I have tried to give you the last report that I received from the GI office, which is 31st of October out there. So these are the latest. You won't see these numbers even in the website. These are numbers which I've just given you. Can we go to the next slide? And then what I've done is, I thought, let me explain to you a few 2 or 3 case studies. And that will illustrate the issues that we face. It's not all that hunky-dory that everyone says, GI, you file, you get registered, and money keeps falling through your years. No, it doesn't happen that way. I want to give you 2 simple. One that I'm very closely involved with, right at the very grassroots level, And this is called Johanagar Moa. Johanagar Moa, this Moa is, my friends from Bangladesh would understand, but this is a sweet, right, which is made in the, a bordering between India and Bangladesh in the Sundarban area. And I do work in those areas personally at the grassroots level. Now, what's the issue with these sweets? And that's registered a GI in 2012. But what is the issue with these sweets? The shelf life is only 36 hours. Within 36 hours, what happens is the quality of this starts deteriorating, and the taste and the flavor and texture and everything changes. So 36 hours is too short. What can you do with it? Now, it's got a GI. Now, one of the things that if you really want a socio-economic impact, you have to increase the shelf life. Now, if you want to increase the shelf life, you have to play with the product. Then will it ever be a GI again? So you are into that sort of a problem. So what we did was, and I'm personally involved with it on a daily basis. So what we did is we changed the packaging of that. That packaging which you can see there is the packaging. And with that packaging change, 36 hours we were able to extend to 7 days. Now imagine the socio-economic effect of that GI just from 36 hours going to 7 days. You won't believe it that they could not even take it to a few hundred kilometers from their place to sell. And the moment we did that, we got in touch with the Indian postal system. There's something called a speed post, where the Indian postal system guarantees the delivery anywhere in India in 48 hours. So we did that. And so this product started going across the country. Now imagine the socio-economic impact of a GI, and people are ready to pay more, okay, once you come with that. And having done that a couple of years ago, what we also did is that the government of India actually issued a, you can see that that's a first day cover by the Indian postal system. So we went into doing all these things out there. So you need to look at GI very holistically. It's not just a registration and get away and all is done. So this is something very important. So we did this, and with this 7-day extension, and then also doing a bit more on packaging and things of that type, today this group from the Sundarban area are actually exporting Johanagar Moa to different parts of the world. So we have changed the complete socio-economic pattern by looking at the GI, also bringing in a bit of technology and other things into it. So you need to do all these things together to have a socio-economic impact. Point number one. Point number two, this pagdi, you put a headgear, okay? That is the headgear. Now, this got a GI in Pune, in the western part of the country. It's a traditional headgear. Now, after it got the GI, how do you make it into a commercial, of course, people put it in weddings and other things. But what these people did, I'm not involved with that work, but someone who's done it, and I thought I should project it. Now, this one has been put into the university system. Okay? So many thousands of students graduate every year. And in that region, we have moved away from this traditional, the old British type of convocation gowns and dresses, and these have become traditional part. And so in the university, now this is a must. So this has become, this GI has now entered into the university system. So you can see the impact that it can have. So you need to think about these different aspects. So GIs don't simply happen by themselves. You've got to create these opportunities out there and use that cultural pride to really make things happen. So this is something I thought I would present to you as a challenge that we face and how we think about solutions. It's not easy, I can assure you. I mean, it's not as easy as I'm telling you. It's taken years of work to really make these happen. Can we get to the next slide, please? And then I thought I would put one, this is a very beautiful, like what Tamara has put on today is a sari, right? That's called a sari, in our. Now, there is a very special sari which is, actually embroidered with gold and silver and whatnot. You imagine That sort of a design, all hand done. Okay? This is called Chanderi. Now, in 2005 it got a GI. Then they created a council, a foundation together. And having done that, the first problem was, because lots of people are making these and calling it Chanderi, which is not, from other regions, other places. So enforcing this was a big issue. So this foundation, which got the ownership, actually went and enforced it. And then did an out-of-court settlement. Okay? And stopped the others. The fact that they could stop the counterfeited products being called as Chanderi itself gave a big boost to the local industry. And so that created the GI, and that is what I put there. And then, of course, when the Commonwealth Games came into India, we, for every sports person and the winners, you give something, you put it on them. All that was made of Chanderi. And the Ministry of Textiles then took it up, and thousands and thousands and thousands were made. And now that's become very popular. And now it is sold on e-platforms, etc., out there. So, you got to experiment. You got to utilize the local, cultural framework to do something like that. And mind you, why this is not easy, and you'll see it in the next slide. Can I go to the next slide, please? The next slide is that with some of these things, till about 2017, as recent as 5 years ago, what were our issues? And I thought I must highlight, being a very, very grassroots person, what the issues are. And the issues are what? GI awareness among communities. They hardly know what is GI. Right? It's a multilingual country. It's a multicultural country. All those things. So number one, standardization, quality control. Very poor. How do you, create that to people that you must have the standardization and control? We are not culturally done that way. Right? There's a cultural weakness we have towards quality control. Then production and sale, very, unorganized. I've called it unorganized, actually it's disorganized. I've just tried to slightly go to a better word than saying disorganized. Unorganized. Market access, unexplored. I gave you the example of John Moore. GI owners, they're not proactive. They get it and then relax. They all say, I got GI, I got GI. Big deal. Okay? That is, state governments, central governments, the schemes for geographical indication promotions were found wanting. I'm talking about 2017. Banks and institutional funding, there was nothing at that stage. Then technology intervention and supply chain, we looked at it very carefully, and I gave you one example of John Moore where the technology intervention had to come into that particular bit out there. Consumer preparedness, are consumers prepared to pay more? Answer is no, because I'm getting a cheaper product, which is a non-GI. Then why should I pay 10 or 20% more? Okay? So consumer education becomes a very important part. And then enforcement framework. You go to the police or you go to the other places or to the, and they're just not, familiar with geographical indications. So what about enforcement? So these are the issues. Now what steps are we taking? Let's go to the next slide. So now we have created a roadmap for the country based on these experiences. So what are the roadmap? The roadmap is, on one side, you grow the domestic market, and to grow the domestic market, we have worked out specific action points. Right? That's one part. Second part is, can we then create these sort of, cash flows? So you look at it as a business. You got to look at GI as a business opportunity. So you have to go to a business model for the country and for the local communities. So you create a complete business model. And that's the business model where you look at cash flow, you look at the supply chain, you look at technology, you look at all these aspects that go into it. And on the other side, to tap international markets, you use the international chain. So we work this out on this, where we called as Indian GIs local goes global. Right? And I'll give you examples of how that is happening now. So 2017, now it's 2022, something is happening, but we expect from 2022 to 2025 it will be a completely different story. Let's go further. So I just gave you the map of India. India's total area is about 3.287 million square kilometers. So from south to north is 3,500 kilometers, and from here to here, it's about 3,500 kilometers. We are talking about that. And we have all these states out there, and what is shown there is the different states. What are the GIs, the total number of GIs that each state in India has been given as of 31st October 2022. And that's the data out there. And that 392 was the data number that you saw in, that are being granted. Foreign GIs, as I speak, 30 have been granted. And I'll show you what they are. Go further. And now, I'm just trying to show you, A means agricultural products, M means manufactured, H is handicrafts. So state by state, we have got the breakup. And that also tells you the skill sets in India and how we go about in doing. And if we want to create an Indian portfolio and brand, how we should really map the country and how we should do things. So all this data has now been put on place. Okay? So, planning for the country is not easy. So you have a macro and a micro view, which is what we have done. Go further. This is just a mapping of each one. Actually, this was a slide which was as big as this room, right? Which was put up in Delhi only a few weeks ago, okay, on an international trade fair to show the Indian GIs and to brand Indian GIs. I just picked it up and put it here. Go to the next slide. So now, what are the new initiatives? And these are the next few slides where I will end. Central and state governments promoting GI products through organized trade fairs. This was never happening before. In fact, the last trade fair just took place last week in Delhi, where there was a full GI pavilion, massive, where all the Indian GI were actually exhibited out there. So that is that part. Government departments, including Indian GI products in their workshop conferences, now materials which are being given, say, a conference like this. So everything that you will get will only, including the bag, and everything will be a GI product. So we have taken a view. Okay, let's promote. Let GI get into the business, right? So that's the second part of it. What is the third part? That we are creating a GI database and multilingual, because then when you go into the e-platforms and business platforms and everything, this becomes a very easy stuff. And that's why all the numbers which I showed you and the spread is creating all the databases. So there's a whole strategy behind all that, right? That is that part. Then adoption of security technologies. We want to see how to really put security technologies into it, like barcodes or even QR codes, etc., etc. Can you go to the origin and link it up? So counterfeits and whatnot, we want to try and build up. We have not yet done it, but we want to do it. Now, I'm in the National Awards Committee for IP in the country, and we recently actually gave national awards to GIs and the most popular GIs. Next slide, if I can come to. And this is very interesting, that now we have an e-brochure for all the Indian GIs. Okay, that's the cover page of that. And these slides will be available to you, so you can actually go to these websites out there. The Indian Brand Equity Foundation is a trust established by Department of Commerce, and now we are going into GI and how to create brand India on GI. So there's a strategy in place and action in place, which is happening now as I speak. E-commerce sites, they've already, and I've given you a list of all e-commerce sites where you can buy authentic GI products. You go to the market, you may not get authentic, but you go to these sites, you get authentic, and you can actually do a full e-commerce on that. Very important out there. So I've given you those. Major business houses like Tata's, Reliance, and many of the others who are the multi-billion, you know that among the top 10 billionaires in the world, there are at least 3 from India now. And those billionaires have got into the GI stuff, and they are setting up stores. right? GI authenticated stores. And there you will hear about them shortly. Yeah, they're all happening as I speak, right? So that's happening. So that's the other part. And then the very important part is the tribal. The tribal community is very neglected otherwise. Today the President of India comes from a tribal community. And she is, has done a lot of work personally at a time for the tribal communities. And now the Tribal Cooperative Marketing Development Federation of India now is collaborating with other government departments to get all the tribal arts on GIs now on the up. So I've given you those websites. You can actually go to the websites and see what's actually happening. So India is going through a transformation at this particular stage. Next slide, please. And very interesting, our Prime Minister is the greatest ambassador of GI in India. So in the G7 and G20, now India is the chair of G20. Sorry, out there. So now, sorry, G7. And what India is doing, the Prime Minister himself has become the ambassador. So now whatever he gives to anybody, anywhere in the world, it's only Indian GI. So it's a completely bottom-up and top-down approach that India is doing, and GI has become a lovely sandwich on this. So we want to make that happen. So that is where the Prime Minister comes, and you can see every world leader into that. And the last slide, and that is, only last week we had this particular trade fair in Delhi, where we had a massive pavilion, and all the Indian GIs, with the people, the weavers, and everybody else was there, out there. And I want to show you that this gentleman here, he is Professor Unnat Pandit. He is actually the Controller General of Patents, Trademarks, Designs, GI, etc., etc. And he is involved in GI on a daily basis out there. And that is something I want to show you with all these things that are happening. And you can see that India is celebrating India's famed traditions, culture. I'm very much a part of all this game on a daily basis. So that's what, ladies and gentlemen, I thought I would share with you what we are doing today. And we have come a long way. But I must tell you the path is very arduous, difficult. It's treacherous. Why? Because a lot of middlemen, you're cutting middlemen. And mind you, in our type of countries, cutting middlemen is not easy in trade. It's actually you're entering into a very, very dangerous game. And I call it dangerous. It's literally dangerous out there. So we are doing all that. Let's see where we reach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for this excellent presentation. I think I'll start with Mr. Louvlouv. Are you still with us? He's still here. I hope you can hear us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Louvlouv, for the excellent presentation, and thanks for sharing with us the impressive figures on GIs in China, and also for sharing the efforts of CNIPA in promoting the use of GI schemes. I gather that you're already seeing big results in what it concerns employment, rural revitalization, but I also understood that you both actually concord in agreeing that GI awareness is a key exercise to be conducted especially in rural areas, and that is what we came with WIPO to that conclusion too. I also was quite well impressed by the partnership you had been working on with Alibaba, and also with banks to facilitate financial services with GIs. I think this is a brilliant idea and strategy, and something that they producers, especially at the beginning, might really need. Now, it is clearly a story of success, the one in China, and multiple stories of success. Now, the question I have for you is what were the major obstacles in the projects that you mentioned, or the biggest obstacle that you as CNIPA encountered? And also perhaps a less diplomatic question, an interested one from my side. What are the chances that China will consider an accession to the Geneva Act of the Lisbon Agreement in the near future? Thank you.
问了2个问题，第一个问题是中国在就是推进GI 方面遇到的最大的困难，目前为止是什么？第二个是中国有没有可能加入里斯本体系？第二个问题就别人回答，可能会不听我的。
行。下面我来回答一下您的第一个问题。
Okay. So next I will first answer your first question.
目前来说，就我个人而言，我认为中国地理标志产业所发展面临的最大的问题是，地理标志的这个意识，特别是它的品牌价值传递给消费者的，还需要呢进一步的加强。
So far, personally speaking, I think the biggest obstacle is that the awareness of GI that needs to be improved.
正如我所发言中所介绍的，就是我们一致的认为呢，地理标志呢是一种独特的品质的一个代号。
So as I just mentioned, we all agree that GI symbolize the unique qualities and characteristics.
但是这么一种观点呢，还需要被广大的消费者呢所接受。
But such kind of notion needs to be accepted by the public.
因此呢，这也是我们近年来所开展工作的重点。
So that is also one of the priorities of CNIPA.
我们围绕这一个工作呢，就是围绕这一项这个提升地理标志的这个品牌的这个影响力和价值，也开展了就像我所介绍中的一系列的工作。
In order to improve the influence of GI and the value of GI brand, we have conducted a lot of work, just like I have mentioned before.
比如说，挖掘地理标志它背后的历史故事、人文的一些文化。
For example, we explore the cultural and historical stories behind GI.
去赋予这个地理标志品牌更多的内涵。
So that the brand of the GI brands can be more meaningful.
使得消费者呢更愿意为地理标志的它的特殊的一个品质呢付出更高的一个产品的价格。
So that the consumers are willing to pay more to get the GI product.
使得地理标志呢真正成为助力乡村振兴的一个有用的工具。
So that GI can really become an important tool to realize the rural revitalization.
这是我关于第一个问题的回答。
So that is my answer for the first question.
至于第二个问题呢，这一项工作呢由我们局的国际部门来负责，并不是我的部门所负责的。
So for the second question about China's possible accession to Lisbon system, unfortunately, it is not the responsibility of my department.
所以说
So I think I do not have the right to answer this question on behalf of my office.
以上就是我的回答，谢谢你。
So thank you for your questions.
Thank you for answering and elaborating on this, and thank you very much. I now turn to Professor Ganguly. First of all, thank you for taking us through the long journey of GIs in India. It was extremely interesting to see how the system has been developing, and I was impressed by how much the procedure is articulated. And talking as an European, let's say, GI lawyer, I see resemblances, but I also see some differences on which I will pose you a question. It was also, I think we have to thank you for the fascinating examples. One overall, the one of Joinagar Moa, which I will use with your permission again
Please.
in my
All
presentation. I think it's a good example to see also how unusually, but also normally, GIs can also foster innovation, because we think of GIs as some old tool to be, let's say, reserved just for traditions and just to keep traditions going on, but that's not necessarily true. I think that but there were so many interesting points in your presentation, but I think I would like to pose a question rather technical. You mentioned the difference between registered proprietor and authorized user. What I gather is that also authorized user need to be registered to use the GI. And I think this is obviously it has some difference compared to the European system, but I think it has also some analogy, if I'm not mistaken, with the Russian system. And that's interesting for us, for WIPO, because since Russia has acceded, well, it's not formally acceded, but it will be acceding in 3 weeks. To the Geneva Act of the Lisbon Agreement, and we might have to face this subject, which is new to us. So could you please clarify a bit more on what is the difference between the two? And the second question also, it's the less diplomatic one that goes to you as well. Obviously, you don't have to answer to me on an official, let's say, capacity, but just as a personal academic impression. What are the odds, the chances that India, considering its relevance in the international GI landscape, could consider in a near future an accession to the Geneva Act of the Lisbon Agreement?
Right.
Thank you, Professor.
So coming to the first question on authorized users. Now, obviously, when you take each GI, each and every GI, in principle, for every single GI, there could be from a few hundred to a few thousand authorized users, several thousands. Now, obviously, if you go at the rural level, then how do you get each and every one of those registered as an authorized user? This is the challenge I faced when I was working in the northeast of India, in Assam, with the Muga silk workers. Now the point is that most of them are not educated. They don't even know about GI. And now you're expecting them to really become authorized users. So that was a big challenge for me personally and my team. So what we did is we were looking for a model of how to really make it happen. And in 2013, 2014, I'm going back in time, what we did was we were looking at, are there any successful models in India where the government of India has been able to go door to door, because this is a door to door action point and a village to village door to door action point. So we looked at first a very successful program in India, which is the anti-polio program, which is a great success. It's eradicated polio. How? That you have to go and put 2 drops in a child's, that same child, for 3 consecutive years. Now, how do you identify in a migrating population that child and put those 3 drops? Okay? So we said, we studied that model. So I'm saying for GI, how much of modeling you have to do? So we did, we said, well, we don't have the resources for that. Then we said, another great thing that India did is each and every one of us carries an election identity card. So we said, how did that happen? And we know how it happened, because they would come with the camera to the village and every person was photographed, the thumb impression was taken, everything was done. So we said, maybe we should do that and adapt it. So what my students did, and all the credit goes to my students, so they converted this GI application form, the authorized user application form, in an electronic form, put it in 3 laptops, and created a LAN. So we took that with us village to village, sat there. So people came with their identities, and they actually did it. We, and very peculiar, a lot. Now it's getting simplified. You will see it all happening in the next few weeks, I can assure you. Now, after all these difficulties, now things are going to get simplified. So we did all this, and even for authorized user, you need to even submit an affidavit. So even I had 2 lawyers sitting there. Then you have to give a bank draft. Okay? So the bank, so I got the bank to come there with the drafts and issue it. So I mean, these are the realities of what we must understand in our country. You cannot be sitting in an air-conditioned room and talking about GI. You got to sit, and I actually took the GI registrar with me to that place to really see what's happening. And he's a wonderful person, so he actually came. And that's the model which now country is following. So that is now the authorized user, you get the authorized users. Now, will they follow that what you said about the book of specification? It's all there, but it's all theoretical.
I actually wanted to add this.
So now the question is, it needs a huge amount of education as to why you should follow that, and only then you will get the value, not otherwise, right? So, we go through this whole education. So authorized user by law is a great concept, but how do you implement it on the ground? And that's what we are going through at the moment. So that is that part. Coming to the Lisbon part, I can, since I'm not a part of the Government of India, nor am I part of the Patent Office, though I sit on the advisory board of the Patent Office, I sit on the advisory board of the GI, I sit on the advisory board of IP, right? So I'm in the advisory part, okay? So I'm not an employee,
Of course.
okay? But what I can say, we see the Lisbon, the Geneva Act as a great opportunity. We are considering that. There's a lot of discussion going on. And I think sooner than later, we will have a dialogue with you in a more formal way. But that you can expect, I can assure you, you will expect that dialogue. Now we are sitting on 28th of November. You should, in the next 30, 35 days, we will get into a dialogue with you.
Well, thank you, especially for this last statement, and I do hope that that will match the reality. It's a very optimistic from our side. We couldn't expect that soon, but we are ready, and we will be very much look forward to working with you. Thank you also for the examples that you shared with us, because it really explains how the theory is one fact, and then when you go out on the field and you face the reality, especially this reality, is much more complex. And thanks for sharing the brilliant solution that you had and used. Your students, if I got it, Ed, I think it's that's genius. With this, I think that's all. I don't know if anyone from the audience, from the public here, has any question for the professor or for Mr. Louvlouv. Yes, please. You have the mic.
I have a question for. You can. I have a question for Professor Ganguly. Thank you for your very comprehensive and excellent presentation. During your presentation, you mentioned about a composition of expert committee in the registration ecosystem. So, just wanted to know who are the members of this expert committee? Thank
Wonderful
you.
question. The members of this expert committee, there is a core committee, first of all, and I sit in the core committee with the Controller General himself chairing that particular committee. So the Controller General of, I showed you, Professor Unnat Pandit, he chairs that, and he's there in every meeting. I am there, and there are his team of GI, people from the GI registry. There are 2 or 3 of them who are in the core committee. Now, depending on what are the nature of the applications, whether they are textile, handicrafts, agriculture, so for that sort of set, we bring in experts in those fields, and they add on. And that group keeps changing as we look at different applications. So that's the constitution of this that is called the consultative committee.
Yes, if there are no further questions, I think we can move forward with the next item. Again, thanks to Mr. Louvlouv and Professor Ganguly. Thank you.
So thank you for sharing your perspective for today, and thank you, Mr. Mastero, for being a moderator for today.